Yo, what's up guys, Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to hit rank 1 with on the arena ladder. As you can see from the screenshot here, I'm currently 41-3 with this list, so it's been performing really well for me, and as usual, I'll have the untapped link down in the description if you want to check the matchup spreads and other stuff like that. I'm also in the process of writing a full in-depth article about this for the MTG's own premium site that will have more details, a full sideboard guide, how I change the deck for best of 1, and some tips and tricks to help you play the deck as well. So if you're a premium member, keep your eyes out for that. Should be out either late this week or early next week. And I also obviously want to say really sorry for the lack of videos over the past couple months as well. I've had a really busy couple months. I've still been playing a lot and writing articles, but I just haven't had time to write articles and do videos as well. And my priority is on articles to keep stuff coming out for the MTG's own premium members, but thankfully I've got more time on my hands now, so the channel will be back online. I'm going to have a bunch more deck guide videos coming out over the next few weeks and months. So yeah, sorry for the delay in videos, but should have a bunch more coming soon, so keep your eyes out for that. But anyway, let's just get straight into it. So this is Historic, and this is my 4-color Sam combo deck. So ever since the nerfs, I think it's kind of obvious to a lot of people that the best thing, or the most powerful proactive thing to be doing in the format is Ajani plus Goblin Bombardment, because this was the part of the energy deck that stuck around and didn't get nerfed, and arguably was the strongest part of it. I think Goblin Bombardment was just the mirror breaker in a lot of these energy mirror matches, or you know, these mirror matches against decks that are running a lot of small creatures. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the best home for Ajani and Bombardment is. Obviously the Mardu sacrifice decks have been one of the best decks in the format, because you know, Ajani is kind of good on its own, but for Bombardment to be good you also need to be running other sacrifice fodder, because if you draw this without the Ajani it's not really doing too much. And my issue with the Mardu deck, I do think the Mardu deck is very strong and is a top tier deck for sure, but my issue with that is first of all that the other sacrifice outlets that you run in order for your sacrifice fodder like Unlucky Witness and Trap Finder to be good, like Deadly Dispute and Corrupted Conviction, are decent cards, but they feel a little bit underwhelming compared to Bombardment. And I really wanted to try and find a sacrifice shell that could run Birthing Ritual, because I think this is one of the best sacrifice outlets. I think this is one of the most underplayed cards from MH3, so I really wanted to figure out a home for this as well. And my other issue with Mardu Energy is that it has kind of a weak spot to fast combo and control decks as well. So having a way to fit a combo that can just win quickly and not have to rely on burning the opponent out with Bombardment and stuff like Marionette Apprentice was really appealing. So this has definitely felt like the best shell that I've tried so far. So obviously we've got 4 Ajani, 4 Bombardment. That's kind of the staple of this deck. Such a powerful engine on its own, can close games out incredibly quickly, gives you really good reach as well. 4 Amp Raptor as well. We're a Lurus deck, we're running red, so Amp Raptor is kind of, you know, a no-brainer here. Card is incredibly strong. Also helps find your key pieces more consistently. You know, one of the other main reasons I wanted to run Birthing Ritual, in addition to it being great in this combo shell because it can find your Samwise combo pieces, is that it can also find your Ajani more consistently. You know, the player who can get Ajani plus Bombardment set up first is usually the one who has a massive advantage. So once you have Bombardment, using Birthing Ritual to find Ajani is really good. You can also use Birthing Ritual to flip Ajani. Obviously, flipping it during your end step doesn't allow you to activate it immediately, but the really nice thing about running Sacrifice is you have a lot of good chump blockers, so you can often just flip it with Birthing Ritual, chump block to buy you time, and then start going off with Ajani the following turn. So Birthing Ritual, incredibly good. And the other thing about Birthing Ritual is it's also really nice with the combo package that we're running in the deck. So if you're not familiar with the Samwise combo, the 3 combo pieces are Cauldron Familiar, Samwise, and then a free sacrifice outlet. And the way it works is, once you have Samwise in play, if you then play Cauldron Familiar, you get a food token. You can then sacrifice it either to Bartolome or Goblin Bombardment, which gives you another piece of redundancy for Bombardment to make it good. You can then get Cauldron Familiar into the graveyard, bring it back with the food to drain the opponent, get another food token off the Samwise, and then sacrifice it again. So basically infinite damage, infinite life, loops, and then obviously Bombardment makes the combo a little bit quicker because you get an additional damage to the opponent's face as well. So the really nice thing about having these 3 cards together is they give the deck a combo angle of attack, they make Birthing Ritual better, and there's a lot of good crossover between the 2 sides of the deck as well. So first of all, we've got Cauldron Familiar, which first of all is a cat, so it's a creature that we can sacrifice to flip Ajani without needing to sacrifice the 2/1, which is obviously a higher opportunity cost, which is a nice synergy. The drain effect gives you good reach as well, so there will be a number of games where you're just reliant on dealing chip damage with the Bombardment to win the game, and having Cauldron Familiar as just an additional source of chip damage is really nice, so it just gives you additional reach. And then Samwise, a bunch of good synergies with this card as well. Obviously producing food tokens is very nice when we have Familiar and don't have a sacrifice outlet, but the other ability to sacrifice 3 foods and get back a Historic card is really nice in this deck because we can use it to get back Bartolome Bartolome from the graveyard if we need a sacrifice outlet to go off. But very importantly, we can also use it to bring back a Johnny from the graveyard, which is really strong because if you don't have a sacrifice outlet, the opponent will often prioritize killing the Johnny, so getting it back is nice. And if you do have a sacrifice outlet, I've had a number of situations where I have a flip to Johnny, activate it to deal a bunch of damage to the opponent, then use Samwise to bring back another one from the graveyard, play that one, sacrifice a cat, flip it again, then activate it again and deal a bunch of damage. You can often just one-shot the opponent out of nowhere with that. You can also use Samwise to bring back Lurrus from the graveyard, which is really, really powerful in long grindy games, and then also Haywire Might from the sideboard, which is very important against opposing bombardment decks. So the activated ability on this is very nice in longer games as well. And then Bartolome, probably the weakest card in the deck, but it's very, very important, mainly because we want to be able to get a sacrifice outlet off Birthing Ritual. There will be a number of situations where you have Birthing Ritual in play, and then say you go Samwise into Cauldron Familiar. You can then use Birthing Ritual to sacrifice the Cauldron Familiar, put the Bartolome in play, and then just combo off during the opponent's end step. So having it as a way to search for a sacrifice outlet off Birthing Ritual is really important. And then past that, it is a reasonable card on its own. You know, it does give us another sacrifice outlet to trigger Trap Finder and Unlucky Witness whenever we want, and is also just a threat that grows. I have won a few games just by growing this and pressuring the opponent, or just having it there as a big blocker as well. So Bartolome mainly here as, well, first of all, in addition to bombardment, it just maximizes your chances of finding a free sacrifice outlet once you do have Samwise and Cauldron Familiar, both of which you can also find off Birthing Ritual. So it just maximizes your chances of finding the combo, and is just, you know, another way that we can trigger our sacrifice fodder as well. Speaking of which, we've got Goblin Trap Finder and Unlucky Witness in addition to Cauldron Familiar here, and these are definitely the best sacrifice fodder. Trap Finder is great in this deck because basically everything you can find off it is a good hit. Bartolome and Samwise are obviously a little bit awkward because you don't get the discount off it, but there will be a ton of situations where, you know, you have a Samwise and Cauldron Familiar and it hits a Bartolome and it just gets you the final combo piece that you need. Additionally, no matter what you get off Trap Finder, you can sacrifice it to Birthing Ritual during your end step before it triggers. And thankfully, Arena triggers it the right way as well, or it does for me at least anyway. You know, it will trigger the Birthing Ritual before the creature sacrifices itself, which really mitigates the downside of this. But some of the best cards that you can find off this, Johnny's really nice because you do get the discount and you can flip it. If you do flip it and you get it off a Trap Finder, it will sacrifice itself during the end step, but oftentimes the extra damage you get off the zero ability is worth doing that. And obviously you can choose to sacrifice the Ajani to another effect like Bombardment, Birthing Ritual and Bartolome, and you still get the 2-1 off it as well. Probably the best card that we can get off it is Amped Raptor though, because again we get the discount, it gets haste so we can get in for an attack, and it obviously gets another card off the ability there as well, which is really strong. So Amped Raptor, incredibly strong card to get off Trap Finder, and there are some really nice cards that we can get off from the sideboard as well. Remorseful Cleric is really important against the Woodland deck, so being able to get that for 1 mana, attack, and then sacrifice it to exile the opponent's graveyard during the end step is really nice. Crawl Harpooner is also really big. Being able to give this haste is really strong because if you've got a stacked graveyard, this can become like a 7 or 8-2. I typically only bring this in against Wizards, but if they have no blockers, I've managed to win against Izzet Wizards by getting this down as a 7-2 haste and just attacking for a ton of damage and then sacrificing it to a bombardment, for example. And then Haywire Might is also mainly for bombardment decks. I'll go over these when I go to the sideboard a little bit later, but getting this as a 0 cost just basically gives you a, you know, free attack with a 1-2, and then basically just gives you a green disenchant for 1 mana that also gains you 3 life as well. So a bunch of really good cards to get off the sideboard with Amped Raptor as well. But Trap Finder is just really solid, helps us find combo pieces more consistently as well. And then Unlucky Witness, very, very strong card here as well. Helps us keep hitting land drops when we need, and also similarly dig towards whatever we need. Very importantly, if you are going to sacrifice this, it's a, you know, a very easy trick to do is just set a stop during your end step and sacrifice it to a card like Goblin Bombardment during your end step if you need to use multiple creatures to ping down an opposing creature, for example, and then you'll get both cards until your next end step the following turn. If you sacrifice this during your main phase, you're going to be wasting the cards you get off it a lot of the time, so bear that in mind. And then we also get to run Lurrus as the companion, which is a really big deal. Obviously Lurrus is the best companion in the format, and it's a really nice mana sink if you end up flooding out, and basically everything that you can bring back with Lurrus is high impact. Bringing back a Johnny to get an extra flip off it is really big. Bringing back Bombardment and Birthing Ritual if they get hit by discard spells or removal is really big. Similarly, bringing back combo pieces is really huge as well, because they're usually going to be the priority if the opponent has a removal to keep you off the combo. combo, so gives you really nice resiliency there. Also, if you have a sacrifice outlet, bringing back Trap Finder and Unlucky Witness every single turn is a huge deal as well. So Lurrus, really nice. It's also a cat as well, so it makes the opponent's removal a little bit awkward if you have an Ajani in play, because they need to kill the Lurrus, but then you get to flip the Ajani for free as well. So having to run, or getting to run Lurrus here is a really big deal. Then in terms of the mana base, this was the real big sticking point for me. This was kind of the reason why I didn't initially go to this build, because running 4-color decks, especially low to the ground 4-color decks where you need untapped lands in the first few turns, is really awkward in Historic without fetch lands. But I've managed to figure out a mana base here where you have enough mana of each colour to consistently have what you need. So I always reference the Frank Carson articles, which say that you need at least 14 of each colour source if you need the mana on turn 1, and at least 13 of each colour source if you need the mana on turn 2. In this list, we obviously need red on turn 1, black on turn 1, and also it's very important to have white on turn 1, because you need Fragment Reality on turn 1 in a number of matchups, especially against Devotion. And with green, there's slightly less that we need. We only need 13, but I figured out a mana base configuration where we have 14 of each on turn 1, which is really big. The one change I would potentially make going forwards, if people start running Field of Ruin or White Orchid Phantom, for example, which punish you for not having any basics, is you could replace a Temple Garden or a Razor Verge Thicket with a basic Plains, and you would still have 14 red, 14 black, 14 white, and 13 green, which, like I said, is the minimum that Frank Carson recommends. But I barely see Field of Ruin, I barely see White Orchid Phantom, so I like having the 14th green source just to maximise your chances of getting Birthing Ritual and Samwise, because, you know, just having that extra percentage just increases your range of keepable hands, because if you have a hand with Birthing Ritual and Samwise and you don't have a green source and you don't have that much else going on, that's often a mulligan, and having to mulligan hands that you don't otherwise have to mulligan is obviously something that you want to avoid. Now, in terms of the number of lands, we are running 24, which is probably more than you'd expect to be running in a very low to the ground Lurrus deck, but there are a few reasons for that. First reason is that you can't hit 14 of each source without 24 lands, as far as I'm aware. If someone else can figure out a configuration where you can hit 14, 14, 14, 13 with only 23 lands, definitely let me know. But I've tried a lot of different configurations and I couldn't figure out one that's better than this. So first of all, you kind of need 24 lands to have each of the right number of sources to be able to curve out consistently. But secondly, we also have a lot of mana sinks in this deck. You do want to hit your 3rd and 4th land consistently in the majority of games. Hitting your 5th land on curve is awkward, you don't really want that, but we at least have Lurrus if we do end up flooding out like that. And if we do hit our 3rd or 4th lands, like I said, we do have a lot of mana sinks. We've got Unlucky Witness and Trap Finder that can keep finding cards as well, and we're very good at grinding into longer games as well. So 24 lands I think is necessary to hit the mana requirements, and is also fine in this list because we have a lot of ways to grind into longer games like Lurrus, like Trap Finder, like Unlucky Witness, for example. So that's the main deck. Like I said, this has definitely felt like the best bombardment at Ajani's Shell. I still think Mardu Sacrifice is good, but I think Birthing Ritual is such a high, it's such a better quality sacrifice outlet, and getting to run the combo package here has a lot of cross synergy with what we're doing already, and also really improves matchups against the more difficult matchups for the Mardu decks, like fast combo decks, for example. So I really like this deck. I think it feels very strong, and as long as the mana base cooperates, which it has for the most part, obviously you are going to have to mulligan a few awkward hands here and there, but I'm surprised that the mana base works out here, which is a really nice upside. So next up, we'll have a look at the sideboard, and we're going to start off here with Fragment Reality, because this is definitely the most important card in the sideboard, in my opinion, because it is very, very important in a number of matchups. So first of all, against Mono Green Devotion, this is really nice at being able to take out their 1-mana ramp, whether that's a Utopia Sprawl or a Birds of Paradise, whatever their 1-mana dorks are. Now, typically against stock Mono Green Devotion, you're a big favourite, because until they can get calmed down, they don't really have any way of interacting with you, so you can typically just beat them with the combo or using Bombardment and Ajani before they can really start getting their hate pieces down. However, I've seen some Devotion lists that are splashing white for some hate cards that are really difficult for you to deal with, namely the 5-mana Elesh Norn and also Yasharn as well, which both stop you comboing off and both stop a lot of your other synergies as well. So having 4 Fragment Reality in the deck is not only good at slowing them down to prevent them getting those hate cards down, but they're also really important at being able to answer a Yasharn or an Elesh Norn, and then you're just free to combo off after that as well. So very, very important against the Devotion decks. Then second of all, Jeskai Control has typically been running sort of the ETB hate cards, whether that's Doorkeeper Thrall or Strict Proctor, for example, which again you know, you can play around, especially with Bombardment, but having Fragment Reality as just a clean answer to those just basically unlocks your whole deck. I feel like unless the opponent can get those down, your deck typically just goes over the top of theirs, because you can get your threats in underneath their counter spells. Cards like Birthing Ritual and Bombardment are a real headache for them to deal with, and then your other cards are just generically powerful, like Amped Raptor and Ajani. So the only cards you're really scared about from the Jeskai side are those ETB hate bears. So having Fragment Reality there as just a clean answer, that is very important. Then against any creature combo deck, whether that's the Naya Primal Prayers deck or Yawgmoth, for example, you just need to take out their key combo cards, whether that's a Guide of Souls, sometimes Primal Prayers itself, but you typically want to take out the Guide of Souls against the Primal Prayers combo deck. And then Fragment Reality taking out, you know, the ramp cards from Yawgmoth, or Yawgmoth itself, enables you to combo off as well. And then additionally, it's also very important against the creature aggro decks, like Is It Wizards, for example. Fragment Reality is really important at slowing the opponent down, in addition to Cruel Harpooner that I'll get to in a second. But Fragment Reality, such an important card in all those matchups that I mentioned. Then next up, we got Cruel Harpooner. So this is here pretty much exclusively for the Is It Wizards matchup, which is a deck that I have seen a resurgence of ever since the energy nerfs. The energy deck getting worse has reopened Wizards as a deck in the format, and I do think Is It Wizards is the one matchup where running the combo instead of a more focused sacrifice package does make this deck worse against Wizards game one, because they have so many cheap burn spells, so they can just take out your combo pieces to cut you off that. And then you do still have Bombardment as a way to ping off their creatures, but you know, it can be a little slow to get online sometimes, whereas the energy deck can run Fatal Push and Claim the Firstborn, for example. So that is one matchup where we're definitely weaker game one. But post-sideboard, what I tend to do is just cut a ton of the combo. I cut Bartolome's entirely, and then I go down to one Samwise. So we still have access to one that we can find off the Birthing Ritual if we have a familiar in a Bombardment, for example. But I typically basically just cut the combo and board into a bunch of interaction, and then we're basically just playing a fair sacrifice game plan, which has a very good matchup against Wizards. And the reason why I really like Cruel Harpooner here specifically is because it's a really good removal spell against some of their most powerful threats, like Symmetry Sage, Balmor, and Slickshot Show Off, that can fight it and then stay on the battlefield as a 3/2 reach to block future flyers that they play. And it's a card that we can also find off Birthing Ritual and Trap Finder, which we can then cast it for 1 mana. So Harpooner being tutorable during our end step off Birthing Ritual on turn 2 is such a blowout against cards like Symmetry Sage, Balmor, and Slickshot Show Off, similarly off Trap Finder as well. So this card really helps to improve the Wizards matchup, and I do think it's worth it because, you know, dedicating specific slots for that matchup, because I feel like the majority of other matchups in the format are pretty good already. Wizards is one where you struggle game one, so having 7 kind of targeted sideboard cards against them really helps to flip that matchup on its head post sideboard. Now next up, we've got 3 copies of Remorseful Cleric. So this is here predominantly for the shifting Woodland deck, but there are also some other fringe graveyard decks that I still see occasionally, like Kethis or Reanimator, for example. And the main reason why I'm running this over alternatives like Soul Guide Lantern or Licensers, for example, is again, it's a creature, so we can find it off both Birthing Ritual and Trap Finder, which is a really big deal. Now one card that you might be surprised I'm not running in this sideboard because of that is Juggernaut Peddler, which is typically a very good card, especially if you are running cards like Birthing Ritual. But the main reason I'm not running it is because I just feel like, you know, Juggernaut Peddler is specifically good against combo and control. Like I mentioned, control, the only real control deck I ever see in Historic is Jeskai Control, which is running a lot of the ETB hate cards like Strict Proctor and Doorkeeper Thrall. So Juggernaut Peddler isn't that good there, and I feel like Fragment Reality is just more important to be able to kill those cards, because the rest of our deck is pretty good against control anyway. And then the combo decks in the format, like I said, Shifting Woodland is one of the main ones, and I don't feel like Juggernaut Peddler is particularly good against Woodland because their main combo card is a land, and they have a very high density of cards that can fill the graveyard to enable that land, so discard spells don't work particularly well against them, whereas Graveyard Hate is really, really strong against that deck specifically. And then in terms of the other combo decks in the format, the only other combo decks that really see play are creature-based combo decks like Primal Prez, for example, in which case we already have cards like Goblin Bombardment and Fragment Reality to keep them off their creatures. If a deck like Belcher suddenly starts seeing more play, or Creativity, for example, then I could see the argument for running Juggernaut Peddler in the sideboard, but I've not seen those decks at all recently. I don't think they're particularly well positioned against any of the other decks. So in the current metagame, I feel like, you know, Cruel Harpooner, because Is It Wizards is popular, and Remorseful Cleric are more important tools. But like I said, if decks like Belcher and Creativity start seeing more play, then you could consider finding room for Juggernaut Peddler. And then the final card in the sideboard is 4 copies of Haywire Might, and this is specifically here for Bombardment mirror matches, because Bombardment is the mirror breaker in all of these decks, right, against the just pure Boros Energy decks or against the Mardu Sacrifice decks. The opponent having a Bombardment in play is a real headache for you, not only because it just, you know, gives them an advantage killing your Ajani's and getting to flip theirs, for example, but also because they can keep you off the combo, right? The key card you need to keep in play to be able to combo off is Samwise Gamgee, so if the opponent has Bombardment and 2 creatures, they can just keep you off the combo at instant speed. So having access to Haywire Might to be able to remove opposing bombardments not only gives you a real edge because the player who has the bombardment in play usually has a big edge anyway, but it also just unlocks your ability to combo off, which is really huge. So running 4 copies of Haywire Might not only maximizes your chances of drawing the first one, which is very, very important. If the opponent doesn't have a bombardment in play, you typically get to go over the top of them because you have the combo, you can go off, for infinite damage at any time, but Bombardment is the key card that can really stop you from doing that. So 4 Haywire Might maximize your chances of drawing it, and then same thing with Remorseful Cleric and Crawl Harpooner. It's also a card that we can get off Trap Finder and Goblin Bombardment as well. So that's the deck. Like I said, it's felt incredibly strong to me. Every matchup definitely feels winnable, and you just feel like such a powerful proactive deck. You can combo off on turn 3 a lot of the time, and especially thanks to Birthing Ritual, and you're still getting to run the most generically powerful package in Ajani Bombardment. So it's a deck that's really difficult to attack from all different angles. Felt very, very strong to me overall. Next up, I've got some gameplay. I've got 5 matches that I was playing on the ladder so you guys can see the deck in action. If you've got any questions about the deck at all, definitely let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the deck guide, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Big up. Okay, so we're on the play here. And a little bit awkward not having a 1-drop, but I think on the play I can keep this. On the draw, this might be a little slow, but I definitely think on the play that we can keep this. And I'm probably going to lead on Amped Rapture on turn 2, unless we draw a combo piece, for example. If we draw a Bombardment or a Cauldron Familiar, then I think there's maybe an argument for going for Samwise. So against Devotion, which is a very good sign, I'm going to lead on Amped Rapture here. Okay, and we hit Bombardment. That's very good, because that means that if we draw Cauldron Familiar off the top, we just win here. But also we can flip Ajani at will, which is going to be very nice at just dealing direct damage to the opponent, being able to ping down their creatures before they can really get going, which is a big deal. So we'll see what we draw. Okay, another Samwise. So I think we're just going to run out the Ajani here. And then we can pretty freely attack with the Amped Raptor, or trying to think whether I want to flip the Ajani first here or not. Because the awkward thing is if we attack with the Amped Raptor, they can block with the Fanatic, and then we would have to sacrifice both creatures to kill it. So I think I'm just going to prioritize killing the Fanatic first here. We can obviously kill the Halfling without needing to sacrifice as many creatures, but I feel like the key here is just taking out their Fanatic, because that really opens the most explosive turns. So now we've got the Fanatic down to 1 toughness. We can attack with the Amped Raptor pretty freely here. They're not going to block with anything. And then we can take down the Fanatic. I'm going to sacrifice the Amped Raptor here, so we still have the token back to block. I don't think they're going to attack with the Halfling. Maybe that's a little... So maybe I'm supposed to just sacrifice the token instead, since they're very unlikely to attack this turn, but I don't think it should make a huge difference here, to be honest. But yeah, taking out the Fanatic is very important, because if we take out the Halfling just to keep more creatures around, there's a good chance, yeah, they have the Polychronos in hand, so they could have gone Polychronos, tap Fanatic for 4 mana, maybe play a Cura to untap it and play Storm the Festival, so that would have left us pretty far behind. So there's maybe an argument to running out Samwise first here in case we hit a combo piece off the Amped Raptor. Okay, interesting. So we hit a Birthing Ritual. So I'm going to play the Samwise now, and I'm going to set a stop during the end step, because we can potentially hit a Cauldron Familiar off the Birthing Ritual here, which would allow us to go off during the end step. So I'm going to ping down the Polychronos here. Since they've got Nykthos, I think that's the best way to deny them mana here. We can obviously ping down the Birds of Paradise and potentially the Halfling here as well, depending on what we hit off the Birthing Ritual. I think we can freely sacrifice the token here to take out the Polychronos. Maybe it's slightly more optimal to wait until the end step. Okay, opponent just scoops that up before we even got to see. But yeah, we were pretty far ahead there. So Devotion should be a good matchup overall. I like bringing Fragment Reality here, and I typically, if I'm bringing in a 4 of like a Fragment Reality or a Haywire Might, I typically tend to cut 2 Bartolome, which is probably the least important card. I mean, getting it off Birthing Ritual to be able to combo off is pretty big, but it's the most cuttable card as a 2 of. And then I also like to trim down on the Unlucky Witness and the Trap Finder. Can't keep a 1-lander here, but yeah, it's very nice that we saw no white mana from the opponent, because the main cards we're worried about from the Devotion side are some list of splashing white for Yashan and Eleshnon. If the opponent isn't, then this should be one of our best matchups, because they don't have any good way of interacting with us before they can get Calm Down, for example. So here, I'm going to lead on the Cauldron Familiar, Could have led on the Unlucky Witness instead here, but we can get in for more free damage here by casting the Ajani on turn 2, which is what I want to go for here, because if they block the Cauldron Familiar, we can just flip the Ajani here and replace the Cauldron Familiar with a 2-1, and we've obviously got a flipped Ajani here, so... Okay, looks like the... Okay. Some people still don't clock that Cauldron Familiar is a cat, because it's not a typical interaction here, but yeah, opponent definitely shouldn't be blocking there, I don't think. So now they've got Trailblazer, they've got 5 mana here, so they could have a very explosive turn. We'll see what they have. I guess the main thing I'm worried about here is Cure untap. Okay, Cavalier of Thorns. So they have got a pretty big board here, but we've got potentially the combo. We do have 2 of the pieces, so if we draw Samwise here, we're pretty close to being able to combo off. We can also find Samwise off Amtraptor, which is pretty big, but even if we don't, we've got the Bombardment here, which is pretty huge. So going to run out the Bombardment and the Unlucky Witness, and then... Just trying to think what we want to take out here. I think we just want to deny them mana as much as possible. So I think we're going to prioritize taking out the Fanatic and the Trailblazer here rather than the Cavalier, because the Cavalier also obviously gets them a card back from the graveyard as well. So we'll activate the Ajani, ping down the Fanatic, and then this is an important trick. If you're planning to activate Unlucky Witness to if you're planning to activate Bombardment to sacrifice Unlucky Witness to ping down a creature, you want to set a stop during the end step so that if you sacrifice it, the cards you get off the exile are available next turn. But in this situation, that's not going to come up because I want to keep the Unlucky Witness as a blocker here. For the Cavalier of Thorns, just to conceal information from the opponent. Maybe it's slightly better to sacrifice the Unlucky Witness instead. I don't think it really matters too much here, but the opponent not getting to see the cards that we exile off this could change how they play their turn. So if they attack with the Cavalier and we hit Samwise, for example, they might prioritize playing Karn and getting a Tormod Script or a Pithing Needle to shut off the combo, for example. But so they're attacking with the Cavalier. We're definitely going to chump block here. And the best card to see here, I guess, would be a Samwise. Okay, we hit 2 lands. That's fine. But we get to go Amtraptor into Ajani here, which is pretty big. And if we hit Samwise off this Amtraptor, we can just win. Okay, so we hit Bartolome. That's not that bad, to be honest. And then we go Ajani here. And then we can activate the Ajani and ping down the... Could ping down the Fanatic, or we also have enough damage to take out the Cavalier here. Actually, okay, that was probably a misplay, actually. I was thinking, we're wasting damage by not taking out the Cavalier, but it's probably better to take out both Fanatics here, because we don't really care about the Cavalier when they don't have Nykthos. This also enables them to get back a creature like the Trailblazer that has 4 power. I mean, I don't think it's going to end up mattering in too many spots. The only 2 I can really think of is if... Actually, having said that, them getting back Trailblazer here is kind of a problem, because they can go Trailblazer and then Eternalize the Fanatic to start drawing cards. So yeah, that was definitely a misplay on my part. I should have taken out both Fanatics here, because we can just keep chump blocking the Cavalier. Now, we could sacrifice our board to take out the Fanatic, but that feels like a bit of a waste. So yeah, that was a misplay on my part for sure. I should have just ignored the Cavalier, taken out both Fanatics, and then just kept chump blocking the Cavalier, or maybe even take it out the following turn when they don't have a Fanatic in play. Okay, so they choose to Eternalize the Fanatic first, which is weird sequencing. Oh, they have Karn. Okay, interesting. So they're gonna get Pithing Needle here, presumably. I wonder what they named though. Probably the Ajani, although still having Bombardment here is pretty big. So just thinking whether I want to use the Bombardment first, just in case they name Bombardment. But I'm actually fine if they name Bombardment here. Yeah, okay, they name Ajani, which is the more pressing threat from my opponent's point of view. Oh, wow. Okay, that's a pretty good draw. I was going to say we still have good lines this turn, even without that Fragment Reality. We can put Lurrus into hand. We can definitely take out the Con as well. But yeah, this is just going to close out the game now. We can take out the Eternalized Fanatic, and then we can take out the Con, go face, and then still put Lurrus into hand here. So yeah, we got there nice. If they don't have white and they don't have Yashan or Eleshnon, this is definitely a good matchup for us. Okay, so we're going second here. And this isn't a great hand, but we can go Trap Finder on turn 1 into Bartolome and then start activating it and get more cards off the Trap Finder. And we also do have Bartolome and Cauldron Familiar as well, so if we can hit a Samwise off the Trap Finder, we can potentially just combo off as well, which is pretty big. So ideally you'd like a hand with, you know, a Bombardment or a Birthing Ritual, but I still think this hand is serviceable, and we've got the mana of all colours, which is also pretty important as well. Okay, so it looks like we're against Woodland combo here, which is a pretty scary matchup game 1. Post-sideboard, getting access to Remorseful Cleric really helps flip the matchup on its head, but we do potentially have our own combo, so if we can go Bartolome and then sacrifice Trap Finder and find a Samwise, we can potentially outrace them, which would be pretty big. Okay, so still don't really have to worry about Woodland quite yet. We're going to attack him with the Trap Finder here just off of the trade, because I don't reckon they're going to take it. And it's not like we, you know, if we had Birthing Ritual, then we definitely wouldn't attack there. But, you know, I think I would trade a Sata Wayfinder instead of getting a +1/+1 counter on the Bartolome here. So thankfully we don't have to, you know, they didn't have Rumble on turn 2. Okay, they've got Rumble now. So I'm pretty sure they'll be able to go off next turn if they have a Shifting Woodland in hand, which is a little bit spooky. But again, if we sacrifice this Trap Finder and find a Samwise, or we draw a Samwise off the top, we can just win on turn 3 here, which would be pretty big. You know, getting to steal game 1 against Woodland is a pretty big deal. Okay, they got Traverse, so I assume they'll just get a big creature here that they can play off the Omniscience. Okay, no attacks makes sense. So, you know, we don't have to worry about attacking as part of the combo, so I think we're just going to attack with both here. If they block the Trap Finder, that's fine. If they block the Bartolome, we can just sacrifice the Trap Finder in response. Really hoping to find a Samwise here. That would be the best case scenario. We're also not 100% sure. Okay, we didn't find a Samwise, which is a little bit annoying. Which does mean that if the opponent has a Woodland here, we'll likely lose game 1. But we're not 100% sure the opponent has Woodland in hand yet, right? We haven't seen it yet, so that's our main out here, I guess. Interesting. So we find an Ajani here. So, I mean, we can flip the Ajani and ping down. Yeah. Oh no, hold on. Okay, so we don't have quite the right mana to do that. I'm just trying to think if I misplayed here. No, I don't think I could have done it. I would need a spare red mana here. If I had a spare red mana, I could have flipped the Ajani and then use it to ping down the token. But I don't think it's really that impactful here, because we know they've got the 4th land. If they have Shifting Woodland, it doesn't matter if we kill the token anyway. So I don't think that should end up mattering. So we do sack the Ajani here, but we do have, you know, a reasonably big board here, and we do have another Trap Finder in hand to be able to find Samwise. Maybe that was actually a bit of a misplay, because okay, they do have the Woodland, so we're likely losing here anyway. But I'm gonna make them play it out just to see what cards they're running, because Woodland decks are slightly different depending on the build. So yeah, thinking back on that last turn, I did think I slightly misplayed there, because if they didn't have the Woodland and I play Trap Finder and I sacrifice it, okay, yeah, we're not winning this one with Elesh on. But yeah, if I need a creature to play after the Samwise to be able to combo off, so I probably should have kept the Ajani in hand there to be able to do that. So here, we definitely want the Remorseful Cleric, and we definitely want the Haywire Might. And I think I only want 2 Haywire Might. Remorseful Cleric is the main card, but, you know, having access to 2 Haywire Mights as well, it does give them a free card off the Omniscience, right? They get to cast 1 for free, but having Haywire Might is an instant speed way to deny them, you know, comboing off and getting like a Fae of Wishes to get stuff from the sideboard, or getting multiple creatures in play is a pretty big deal. But yeah, the most important card in this matchup is definitely Remorseful Cleric for sure, because that just shuts off everything they could do, really. The whole deck is built around Woodland, so, and we have a lot of ways to find it, so this hand, I think, you know, we don't really have a good game plan. We really need to have a fast start with a combo or something, or a way to get Remorseful Cleric. Okay, mulled into a no-lander, which is pretty rough. So we're going down to 5 here, but, you know, their whole deck is built around the graveyard, so we can definitely win with a 5-card hand. And Birthing Ritual as a card is a really good way that you can just undo mulligans, because you can just loop your sacrifice outlets, right? You can go Trap Finder into Birthing Ritual, sacrifice the Trap Finder, get another creature, and then put an Unlucky Witness in play, then sacrifice that, and you get 2 more cards, and you're really undoing the mulligans. So yeah, Birthing Ritual is definitely the card we're looking for when we do mulligan down. So Ajani, Bombardment, Birthing Ritual is pretty nice here. I do want to, you know, there's definitely a good argument for casting Birthing Ritual first here, because the Woodland deck does run removal. From what I've seen, they run Cathartic Pyre, they run Vampire's Vengeance. So if we cast Ajani out on turn 2 here and they have something like a Vampire's Vengeance, that could potentially cut us off getting value off the Birthing Ritual. So I'm going to run out the Birthing Ritual here for sure. And then the card that we're just hoping to hit is Remorseful Cleric. But again, you know, hitting Haywire Might is also an out to a lot of their lines as well. Okay, so they're cracking response. Okay. I was worried they were going to have blue mana and Spell Pierce then for a second. They could still have Besage or something like that, which would be an issue. But even then, we still have Bombardment plus Ajani, so which is obviously a decent synergy. Okay, turn 2 Rumble into Woodland. That's probably their scariest turn 2. Thankfully, they didn't hit any relevant Woodland targets, though. If they hit Omniscience into the graveyard, that would be very scary. Either way, we get to run out of Johnny here, and then I would, if they had Omniscience in the graveyard, I would play this Stomping Ground untapped to have access to green mana off Haywire Might. But because we don't, it's not really, you know, necessary this turn. Okay, so we didn't hit a Remorseful Cleric or a Haywire Might, but we do get to get Samwise in play here, which I'm going to do. Obviously, we could have kept a Johnny around for the Bombardment next turn, but having a Samwise in play and a Bombardment in hand means that if we draw Cauldron Familiar or we hit Cauldron Familiar off the Birthing Ritual, we can win at instant speed during our next end step. So I definitely think that's a good trade for us to make here. Okay, so they shock in a Stomping Grounds. Okay, and they do pyre the Samwise here, which that's a little bit annoying because now if we hit Remorseful Cleric off the Birthing Ritual, we can't actually put it into play unless we draw a 2-drop. So ideally we find, another 1 or 2-drop creature. So if we draw another creature here, then that's definitely a good sign. Okay, we don't unfortunately, but we can play out the second Birthing Ritual, so we can go token into 1-drop into Remorseful Cleric. I just hope that we don't see Remorseful Cleric off this first Birthing Ritual trigger here. But we can potentially hit Haywire Might, which is nice. Okay, we do hit a Remorseful Cleric here, which is pretty awkward. Going to put Cauldron Familiar into play here, though, which is nice, because if we find another Samwise, we then have the combo pieces. And, so, let's see what they've got in the graveyard. So I don't think we need to worry about them comboing off this turn, but having a Haywire Might in play would be useful if they do pitch like a Godpharaoh's Gift or an Omniscience into the yard. So this is a tricky decision here, because Samwise also then means that we can potentially combo off next turn, but I'm going to go for the safer line here. Right, if we go Samwise, we can then potentially go Bombardment into creature if we draw a 1-drop. But again, they're going to probably have more removal against me post-sideboard. Although having said that, if they have removal, they're probably going to use it on the Haywire Might anyway, so... And they don't have Omniscience or Godpharaoh's Gift in the graveyard, so yeah, maybe I'm supposed to go for Samwise there. Maybe if I'm worried about interaction, I'm supposed to go for Ajani instead. So not 100% sure if I played that turn correctly or not. I think there's a pretty good argument to maybe going for Samwise, because like I said, if we draw a 1-drop, we just win, right? We just go Bombardment into 1-drop, and then we have the loop here. But it's close. I don't mind having Haywire Might in play. The awkward thing now is that... Okay, we found Ajani. That's pretty huge. Because now we can play Ajani, hold mana open for the Haywire Might, and then... we got 2 creatures in play to sacrifice to the Birthing Rituals off the Ajani, and we get to keep the Haywire Might round regardless. So I'm going to attack with the Might first. Looks like the opponent has something here, although I'm not sure. Maybe they get priority constantly because of the token sack anyway. Not 100% sure how Arena's priority works with that, but there's a good chance that they have a Cathartic Pyre. But the nice thing about Ajani here is that if we do play the Ajani, if they're trying to use the Cathartic Pyre just to deny us Birthing Ritual triggers, that doesn't really work out well for them. But I think if they are going to take out something, they probably want to take out the Haywire Might, because their main woodland targets are Omniscience and Godpharaoh's Gift, and Haywire Might does stop both of them. I mean, Omniscience is not as good against because they still get to cast one card off the Omniscience, but Godpharaoh's Gift, we can activate the Haywire Might before it triggers. Okay, interesting. So I think it's between Unlucky Witness and the second Ajani here. And I mean, the second Ajani gets another creature in play, which speeds up our clock slightly, but the Unlucky Witness helps us see more cards, which I think is important here when we're just trying to get as many hate cards in get as many hate cards in play as possible, especially Remorseful Cleric, because I do think it's not unlikely they could end step kill the Haywire Might here. They might also be thinking about killing the Ajani to stop us flipping it. And I think in this spot, I might flip the Ajani. I mean, again, I kind of want creatures in play that can sack to Birthing Ritual to get Remorseful Cleric in play, but I am also, aware that a lot of these lists run Vampire's Vengeance as a sweeper, which would not only take out the Haywire Might, but the Ajani as well. And Vampire's Vengeance, unlike Brotherhood's End, doesn't take out the Ajani. So I am going to flip it here, I think. And then, okay, sweet, we hit the Remorseful Cleric. That's huge. So I think we're very favoured now. Because not only do we get the Unlucky Witness trigger, we also have just a Remorseful Cleric in play here to cut their graveyard off. And then we'll just ship it back. Okay, yeah, they did have the Cathartic Pyre. They take out the Haywire Might. A little bit surprised they take out the Might and not the Cleric. Because if they take out the Cleric, they can just, we're forced to sack it and they can just immediately start rebuilding the graveyard. But I guess... okay, they got Pithing Needle as well. So that might be why. But yeah, we have to activate the Remorseful Cleric in response here, because they can just name Remorseful Cleric with Pithing Needle. I assume they're just going to name Ajani here. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I mean, Ajani is obviously a very good card here, but... we've still got the Bombardment in hand. We've still got this Trap Finder as well, so we do have stuff that we can sacrifice to the Birthing Rituals. I mean, they're filling their graveyard pretty quickly here. That's kind of scary. So, we do thankfully have, Trap Finder and 2 Birthing Ritual triggers here, so if we can find another... Sorry, I'm just trying to think if the opponent made a mistake there. I think they probably should have sacrificed the token to play the Haywire Might, and then they can use the Might to sacrifice the Birthing Ritual here. So I'm going to set a stop during the end step, just because there is a chance that we can go Samwise into Bartolome and win at instant speed here. But if we don't do that, I think the main cards we're looking for, again, are Haywire Might and Remorseful Cleric. So we could get Bartolome in play. I think I'm going to go for that because we're getting a lot of Trap Finder triggers anyway. I don't think getting an extra Trap Finder is important. Okay, we did hit a Samwise. That's pretty big. And we hit a Remorseful Cleric. Okay, that's huge. I think we should be good now then. We get another Trap Finder trigger here. So, and now we've got Bartolome in play. Now we should be able to go off with Samwise next turn as well, which is huge. Unless they kill the Bartolome, of course. But if they don't, we can just go Samwise into Ajani, get a food token, and then we can just loop with Familiar and Bartolome, which is pretty sweet. And we've got the Remorseful Cleric here to just cut them off the graveyard. So yeah, this should hopefully highlight why, having Remorseful Cleric in the deck just improves this matchup so much. Especially when you have Birthing Ritual. Okay, looks like they're just going to try and go off with the Woodland, hope we misclick, or just, time the Remorseful Cleric incorrectly, but we can just crack the Cleric in response, and then not only do we reset their graveyard, but we've also just burnt 4 mana this turn, which is huge. But I get it, the opponent probably thinks that this is their main way that they can win, just hope that we misclick and don't exile their graveyard in response. They still do have the Haywire Might activation, so they can cut us off the Birthing Ritual, but if they don't have a removal spell, we should just be good to combo off this turn, I think. Okay, just trying to think if there's a way we can play around a removal spell here. I don't think there really is, but we'll force them to have it. So we go Samwise, we go Johnny. And they should have used their removal spell by now if they have it, so... I guess they could have Surgical, maybe? That could be an out. No, okay, opponent just keeps it up. Sweet, so that felt pretty good. Obviously, Birthing Ritual is very good in this matchup because it can just consistently find our combo pieces repeatedly, but, you know, that's the main reason that we're running it here. Oh, one of the main reasons, right? So, here, I think... their deck just isn't that good without the combo, so I actually think I'm just going to bring in all 4 Haywire Mites and trim on the combo because we can just beat them with the fair game plan, right? Getting to run a Johnny Bombardment and Amp Raptor in addition to the combo does mean that we do have the most powerful fair game plan that you can do in the format right now as well, so I don't even know if we really need that many combo pieces. Okay, definitely going to keep this one even though we don't have any red mana because... just having Remorseful Cleric here is pretty big. We can also run out the Cauldron Familiars to apply pressure. We do need a little bit of help off the top to unlock our hand, but, you know, if we draw a 3rd land, we can get Luris going. Okay, Ajani's a nice addition as well. And I don't even think we need to run out Remorseful Cleric that early. Obviously, if they go for a Rumble on turn 2 and they hit Delirium, then we'll obviously have to go for Cleric on turn 2, but... typically, we don't need to worry about playing Cleric before it goes into the opponent's turn 4, so that means that we can get a Johnny down and just start applying a little bit more pressure, which is pretty nice. Okay, they do have looting on... well, I guess this is turn 2, right? So again, we can still just run out of Johnny next turn. And if we do draw a red source, which we are fairly likely to, statistically, then we can obviously get Bombardment down as well, and then start flipping a Johnny and dealing a bunch of damage, so... okay, so they do have Omniscience in the yard. They also have Elesh Norm, which is, you know, basically a way they can use Woodland to sweep our boards. So opponent in the tank about something here. Not sure what that could be. Maybe whether to hold up a removal spell or play a tap land. Or maybe they just disconnected for a second, not sure. Okay, not drawing a red land here is a little bit awkward, but again, we can still just run out of Johnny here. And we're curving out pretty well here. Vampire's Vengeance would be pretty rough. That would slow our proactive game plan down quite a lot here. Well, they Cathartic Pyre discard draw 2. I guess they're just... oh, wow, they're missing land drops. That's rough. Okay, so we didn't find a red land, but, you know, we should still be good here, I think. Because we can just run out the Remorseful Cleric. We've got a lot of power in play. So not drawing red lands hasn't really hurt our ability to curve out so far. Okay, there's the third land. If they have a sweeper here... okay, they do have the Brotherhood's Ends. So it does set us back a fair bit. But we're now in a position where even if we don't draw a red land, we can still put Luris into hand and then start using Luris to rebuy the Remorseful Cleric. Okay, we do draw a red land, so we're definitely going to get Luris because we want to use Luris to rebuy Remorseful Cleric. If we can do that, then we don't really need to worry about trying to race that quickly because we can just slow them down so much. But yeah, opponent has to rebuild. Oh, Disruptor Flute. Interesting. I wonder what they name here. Maybe they name Luris. They could also name Remorseful Cleric. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So now they cut off the Remorseful Cleric as a way to keep them off the combo, but we also do still have Haywire Might, and they haven't rebuilt their graveyard at all, really, here. So, got the option here between going for Bombardment or Trap Finder, and I think I just like going for Trap Finder here because we're probably going to use the Birthing Ritual more than the Bombardment at this point. Going to get in a Ajani here, and then next turn we could just run out Bombardment. Okay, we hit a 0-cost Haywire Might, so now we can use Haywire Might to take out the Disruptor Flute, or we could use it to hold to take out the... I guess we can't really hold this one though because it's sacrificing during the end step, so we would have to use this one proactively. Okay, they did find the Haywire Might. Do they have another green source here? If they have another green, then they can cut us off the Birthing Ritual, which would be kind of scary, but we'll see. But either way, I think, yeah, we use Haywire Might to take out the Disruptive Flute here. Oh, wow, we found a second Haywire Might. Okay, that's pretty big. So I'm going to run out this first Haywire Might just to take out the Disruptive Flute, and then that will get Remorseful Cleric back online. Now, there is potentially an argument to just running out this second Haywire Might as kind of an insurance against them comboing off, but since they don't have Woodland and they don't have a Delirium, they don't have Omniscience in the yard, I don't think there's that much of a rush to do this. And so I'm just going to run out Bombardment here and going to attack with everything. And we want to basically kill this Haywire Might this turn, because we want to keep both Birthing Ritual and... Okay, yeah, opponent just scoops it up. Yeah, we were pretty far ahead there. Obviously, the opponent missing lands is a little bit rough, but we still had enough to keep them off the combo. Okay, so we're on the play here. And this hand doesn't really do anything. This hand, though, looks really nice. Obviously, we don't have any black mana, but Witness into Birthing Ritual is a really sweet start. So, I'm not sure whether to put back Witness or another land. I think I'm going to put back another land here, because Witness should hopefully help us find another land. And ideally, we do want to find a black source to unlock other top decks as well. So put it on Lure us into Guide of Souls. So could be Boros, could be Mardu. Not 100% sure yet. Either way, Witness into Birthing Ritual is a really solid start. Okay, we don't find a 2-drop, which is a little bit annoying. But I think I'm going to go Witness into Witness here. Okay, another Birthing Ritual is pretty nice, because the next turn, although we do also find a black land here, so we could either go Birthing Ritual, Sacred Foundry, Unlucky Witness, or we could go Godless Shrine, Ajani, Unlucky Witness, which I think is pretty close. I do think we really do want to find a black land to put into play for future draws, but... okay, opponent has the Bombardment, that's a potential issue. Okay, since we drew Bartolome, I think I'm more incentivized now to go for the Godless Shrine. And then we've got a pretty free attack here. Maybe we should have attacked first, just in case they decided to sack the Guide of Souls. I mean, we can potentially flip the Ajani here as well before the opponent can ping it down with the Bombardment, which could be a decent line here, depending on what we find. Okay, so yeah, I think that's what we're going to go for. We'll sack the cat token, get a Familiar, and then flip the Ajani. Obviously, the opponent can use Bombardment to ping down our Planeswalker before we get a chance to do anything with it. But I think that's not the worst, because if we can keep them off 2 creatures on the board going into our turn, if we draw like a Samwise off the top, we can potentially combo. Now, having said that, Bombardment is the card we're scared most of in these sorts of mirrors, especially game 1 where we don't have access to Haywire Might. Okay, that kind of sucks. That's the card we didn't want to see. So now the opponent has Bombardment and Ajani set up. Damn, okay, that's that's pretty good. Now they can claim the Firstborn, the Unlucky Witness. Attack our Ajani down to 1 loyalty, sack the Unlucky Witness to ping down the Ajani, flip their Ajani, get 2 triggers off the death of Unlucky Witness. So, yeah, this is kind of rough. If the opponent has a good Bombardment start, game 1 can be pretty difficult. Post-sideboard, where we have access to Haywire Might, things become better, but I'm still not counting us out of here yet, because, you know, we've still got Birthing Ritual in play, which can, you know, potentially draw us out of this. They are only going to have 2 creatures in play for their Bombardment next turn. But yeah, that was a very good turn for the opponent for sure. Okay, we do get 2 cards off the Unlucky Witness. See what we hit here. Okay, we do find a Samwise, so we can force them to sacrifice both of their creatures here to take out the Samwise, which isn't bad. Getting rid of Guide of Souls is a good sign. Well, it's a good shout here. I guess they could also take out the Bartolome in response to the Cauldron Familiar trigger, which would mean they only need to sacrifice 1. But that's a risky line, because if we find a second Bartolome off Birthing Ritual... Okay, that is the line they go for, so going to set a stop during the end step here. Yeah, I think... I mean, this is a calculated risk by the opponent. If we don't hit exactly Bartolome here, then they get to keep Guide of Souls. Oh, we hit it. Okay, sick. So we absolutely stole this game. We had no right winning this one. I guess they can sacrifice... Oh, they can sacrifice Guide of Souls in response to the familiar trigger again. But if they do that, we have a second food token now, so we can also play around that, right? Opponent just keeps up. So if they ping down the Samwise there, then I think they would have had a better chance. But again, you know, keeping Guide of Souls is pretty relevant. So, like I said, this is definitely a matchup where we want the 4 copies of Haywire Might for sure here. Because, you know, as you saw there, Bombardment is not only good against our proactive game plan if we don't have our own, but it's also good against our non-combo side of the deck, like our own Ajanis and Amped Raptors and stuff, but it's also very good at keeping us off the combo. So having Haywire Might is a way to just get rid of the Bombardment that we can also find off both Trap Finder and Birthing Ritual should give us an edge, because if you can, you know, take the opponent's Bombardment out, then they're reliant on stuff like Fatal Push to keep you off the combo. But yeah, we did definitely steal that game. I think if the opponent pings down the Samwise... I mean, we don't know what was in their hand, but I still feel like we're probably behind, even if they sacrificed the Guide of Souls there. But I can see why they did, right? They only get punished by us finding exactly Bartolome off there. So, going to run out the Familiar on turn 1 here. Don't want to run out the Haywire Might into a potential removal spell. Okay, they got a Ajani on turn 2, so not a bad start from the opponent. Okay, Birthing Ritual is a very nice draw here, so I was going to run out the Bartolome just as, you know, get a blocker down, or maybe you could have gone for Bombardment as well, but Birthing Ritual definitely the best card to be playing here. And I think I'm going to go for Unlucky Witness. You know, makes their attacks... they'll still probably attack with both, but, you know, gives us another good piece of sacrifice fodder. Obviously, if we'd hit Samwise, that would have been the best hit there, because then we can go... just Bartolome combo off next turn, which is pretty huge. So we could obviously trade Unlucky Witnesses here, but I really don't want them to find Bombardment if they don't already have it. And Unlucky Witness is obviously good sacrifice fodder for the Birthing Ritual here as well. Interesting. Okay, so they pass with mana available, which is strange, because I feel like if they had Deadly Dispute or Corrupted Conviction, they would probably want to use it to flip their Ajani. So I'm not 100% sure what they're holding up here. So I think I'm going to go Birthing Ritual and Haywire Might. Obviously this means that we don't have mana available to activate the Haywire Might here, but I feel like if they had Bombardment last time they would have played it. So I feel like we can attack with Unlucky Witness. I'm still trying to figure out what they what they're holding up here, because if they're not holding up anything, they really should be putting Lurrus into hand. Okay, Samwise is a good hit here. If we hit Bartolome, then we get to combo off here. Okay, we don't hit Bartolome. This is kind of risky because Haywire Might, like I said, is very important here, but I think I guess we could trade Haywire Might for Haywire Might just to gain some life. We could also put Ajani into play, but yeah, I think I'm going to go for Ajani instead, because if they have Bombardment, they would have played it last turn. They would have to draw it here. If they have Deadly Dispute, I feel, unless they want to use the Deadly Dispute or Corrupted Conviction to sacrifice the Unlucky Witness specifically, then I don't get why they would hold it here. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe the opponent has a removal spell, but I feel, again, if they had a removal spell, they probably would have killed Ajani or Samwise, so not sure what the opponent had in hand there. Because if they have Deadly Dispute or Corrupted Conviction, they probably don't want to sacrifice the Unlucky Witness anyway, because it's a red permanent to be able to trigger the Ajani, or to trigger the damage ability once Ajani flips. Okay, they do get to flip their Ajani here. So presumably they take out the Samwise, or I guess they could also take out the Ajani. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what they had last time. Maybe they just didn't want to put Lurrus into hand for some reason. Okay, they do take out the Samwise, which is a little odd considering they know we have one in exile here. Okay, now they put Lurrus into hand. They must have a removal spell. That's the only thing I can think of. And they're just being very careful with what they use it on. So here, I think we just go Bombardment, Samwise, and then, you know, we threaten a lot of powerful lands. If they don't have a removal spell here, we just go off with Samwise, right? We cast the Samwise and we can just loop Familiar with the Bombardment. But even if they do have a removal spell for the Samwise here, we can just flip our own Ajani and ping down theirs. So I feel like we're in a good spot here. I'm still just trying to figure out what could be in the opponent's hand here. Maybe they wanted to represent removal. Okay, they have Fragment Reality. That makes a little bit more sense. So here, I think I'm going to flip the Ajani in response. Yeah, okay. Fragment Reality makes a little bit more sense because I guess they didn't want to use it unnecessarily on our 2-drops because then we just get 1-drops in response, like the Haywire Might here, which is obviously pretty good. So, okay, so that's what it was then. They just didn't want to use Fragment Reality on our 2-drops, but even though they've cut us off the combo, I still feel like we're in a really good spot here, though. Still got 2 Birthing Rituals in play. Still threatened to combo off if we hit Bartolome off a Birthing Ritual here, although it's obviously going to be less likely now we've boarded a couple out. So going to put a Trap Finder in play here. And then we can sacrifice the Trap Finder, find another one. Actually, I think I made a mistake here. I should have brought the Familiar back before the end step, so we have the option to sacrifice that to the Birthing Ritual. So that was definitely a misplay. But yeah, next turn we should be good to win, because we've got Bartolome. They need another removal spell for the Samwise here. We also have 3 foods in play, so we can activate the Samwise to bring back a historic card from the graveyard, which is pretty big, because we can get back a second Samwise here. I'm gonna bring back Familiar first. We get punished by this if they have a second removal spell, but I'm pretty happy if they Fatal Push the Samwise in response. That not only it forces them to 2-for-1 themselves, but also means that they can't sacrifice the Samwise to get free mana, right? So we can use the Samwise, get back the other Samwise here. They presumably sacrificed this Samwise to the Phyrexian Tower before end step. But they basically need another removal spell here, or next time we can just go Samwise into Bartolome and combo off. And we obviously now have a red permanent in place, so the Ajani activations are going to start dealing damage as well. So I feel pretty good about this spot. Interesting. So just debating whether we want to block the cat token or not. We could have also potentially blocked the Unlucky Witness to try and deny them a red permanent. Actually, not sure if I want to block here. Because, I mean, the Ajani's dying regardless. No, I think I'll take the trade. Because we get, we get an extra look off the Trap Finder here. We don't need a red permanent in play because the Ajani's going to be dying anyway, right? So we find another Samwise, which could be nice, because if the opponent uses a removal spell here, they would probably want to use it on the Samwise rather than the Bartolome, because we have multiple sacrifice outlets, and the Samwise is probably the more threatening card because it can be used to get back Ajani from the graveyard, for example, or Haywire Mites. And if the opponent does kill the first Samwise, we have a second one back up to try and go off again the following turn. But they do still have a red permanent, they do still have a Ajani in place, so they can start pinging down our stuff. I presume they're going to take out the Haywire Mite this turn. They take out their own Unlucky Witness. Interesting. So they're obviously digging towards a specific card here. Okay, so they do have Claim the First one, but thankfully they don't have Mana Confluence, so they can't use our Haywire Might to take out our own Birthing Ritual. That would be a pretty punishing line here. Let's see what they got. Okay, they're playing Lurus. So I'm really hoping they tap out here. There's a chance they just go Trap Finder Unlucky Witness, which I'd be very happy about here, obviously. Okay, perfect. So now we can just win. Unless they have Surgical Extraction, we should just be good to win. But I can tell they don't have Surgical because they're not getting priority. If I was playing, if this was paper and Arena doesn't give away whether they're holding priority or not, we should have played the second Cauldron Familiar first to have a second food so that we can activate the Cauldron Familiar in response to the surgical, but Arena was giving away they didn't have anything there. So yeah, we got there nice. Okay, so we're on the play here, and I can't keep an Olander, obviously. This hand's a little bit slow, but I think we can keep it here, right? We've got mana of each colour, we've got Ajani and Bombardment as well, which is pretty nice, and then we've obviously got Samwise and Bombardment, so if we draw Cauldron Familiar off the top, then we can just combo off, potentially, so... Gonna lead on the Sacred Foundry. Obviously, we're gonna put back the Bombardment here. We really don't want to put back any of these lands, because we're just cutting ourselves off a mana of, each colour otherwise. Okay, so it looks like we're against Is It Wizards here, so I think I'm tempted to lead on Bombardment here instead of the Ajani, just because, it makes their removal spells a lot less punishing, right? If we run out of Ajani, I think there's a good chance they just use a removal spell on the Ajani, and then we don't get any value off it whatsoever. Okay, so they got Balmor and Soulscar Mage, so we're definitely going to go Ajani here, and then... Just debating which creature we want to take out here. Honestly, Balmor isn't that threatening if it's the only creature they have. And taking out the Soulscar Mage instead here basically just means that we get to keep a 2-1 in play. Now, I'm sure the Balmor is able to attack down the Ajani, but if we... for us to kill the Balmor, we would have to sacrifice this 2-1 to take out the Balmor anyway, which would just give them a free attack with the Soulscar Mage. So I think this way is better, because then... Even if they do kill the Ajani, we're still left with a 2-1 at the end of it. Okay, so do shove aside the token. We'll sacrifice that and just ping the opponent down to 19. And then, presumably, they have another instant or sorcery here, and then they can just... Yeah, okay, so they've got to consider... Balmor becomes a 3-3, so we do lose the Ajani here, which is a little bit rough, but... we still have decent top decks here. If the opponent taps out and we draw a Cauldron Familiar off the top, we can just potentially combo here, which would be pretty sick. Interesting. We draw Bartolome. So we can either go Samwise and Bartolome, but I'm kind of tempted to just put Lurrus into hand here and ship it back, because if we draw another land, then we can go Lurrus into a Ajani and get it back. And if their hand is removal spells, then, we're forcing them... They're likely to want to hold removal open during our turn, if they're holding on to removal spells, right? If they've got Wizard's Lightning or something, we're at a high enough life total where they're more likely to do that, if that makes sense. So, but I think there's a reasonable argument to going Samwise into Bartolome. Oh, wow, we draw Cauldron Familiar. Interesting. I mean, I think it's very likely they've got a removal spell here, but... I think we just have to go for the combo here. Like, the upside is just too high, right? Worst case scenario, they use a removal spell on the Samwise, and we can still go for it again next turn. And I can't remember... Okay, we were on the play, so Shove Aside is instant speed here as well. I was going to say, if Wizard's Lightning is their only instant speed removal here, then we might be alright. Okay, so they do have the Wizard's Lightning. They do take out the Samwise, but I still think that's fine, right? We get Cauldron Familiar down here, and then... I don't think we're at much of a threat of dying here, right? I mean, Wizards will have some nut draws where they can deal 16 in a single turn, but if they tap out here... Oh, I guess we need a second white here to go Samwise and Bartolome in the same turn. But if we draw any other creature, we can go Samwise into that creature, make a food, and then combo off. Wow, looks like they are tapping out. Okay, that's huge. If we draw a white land or any other cheap creature here, we should win. So obviously Cauldron Familiar can't block, but we can still come off with Familiar in the graveyard. So I think it makes sense to use the Bombardment to take out the 1-1 here. Saves us a point of damage and gets a creature off their board. If it is post-sideboard, then maybe you could make the argument... Oh, wow, you kidding? That's like the only draw that doesn't do it. Because if we draw an untapped land here, we can go Samwise into Lurrus. So that's super unfortunate. I think a fast land is the only draw that doesn't win us the game here, right? If we draw a cheap creature... I guess if we draw another Ajani, that doesn't work. Or another creature that needs white. But if we draw any other creature that doesn't need white, we win. So instead here, I think I'm just going to go Lurrus into Cauldron Familiar. And then... I mean, we still don't have enough white sources to play Samwise and Bartolome next turn. But again, like I said, if we draw any other cheap creature, if we draw another white source, then we can win next turn. So, and I still think like 13 is obviously a little bit more sketchy, but they kind of prioritize to take out the Lurrus here. Oh, well, sorry, I meant to sacrifice the Lurrus in response. I mean, I don't think it should end up mattering here, hopefully. Although they do have mana open this turn now, though, which is pretty rough. Okay, we do draw a white source, so we just got to go for it here and hope they don't have another removal spell. Wow, Reading's not giving them priority. It looks like we... Okay, so we got away with it there. But having said that, I think we did get pretty unlucky with the top deck last turn. There were a ton of draws that would have just won us the game while they were tapped out. So it looks like we get to steal game 1 here, which is huge. Against Is It Wizards specifically, getting game 1 is huge, because this is probably the main matchup where I think you're least favoured game 1, and then it gets even better post-sideboard, because after sideboard we get to bring in 4 Fragment Reality, and also 3 Crawl Harpooner, which is a really big way to flip this matchup on its head. So, going to bring the 4 Fragment Realities and the 3 Harpooners. The combo becomes a lot less viable post-sideboard, so I'm going to trim on Bartolome's and Samwise's and a couple of Trapfinder's Unlucky Witness as well. I think there's also a good argument for just cutting Bartolome entirely and going down to 1 Samwise and then keeping Trapfinder and Unlucky Witness. Actually, yeah, thinking about it, that's probably correct, because you really want to have 1 drop into Birthing Ritual so that you can potentially get a Crawl Harpooner on turn 2. So... And having played a lot of Samwise in the past, typically the way you want to play Samwise against Wizards is board into a mid-range deck. So I think I probably should have cut Bartolome entirely and trimmed down to 1 Samwise and then kept all of the Trapfinders and Unlucky Witnesses in, just because you really want to maximize your chances of being able to go 1 drop into Birthing Ritual and then potentially sacrificing that to get a Harpooner. That's a really strong start against Wizards. And Samwise is, like we saw last game, very vulnerable to interaction. Had they had instant speed removal there, we would have probably lost, I think. So yeah, I think in future, if this goes to a game 3 or, in future matchups against Wizards, I'm probably going to keep all of the 1 drops in and just cut all of the Bartolome and 3 Samwise. Probably seems like the best configuration here. Okay, this is definitely a keep for sure. We got Trapfinder on 1. We got all the colours of mana from Confluence. Confluence puts in so much work in this mana base. And then we potentially got Harpooner on turn 2. We got Birthing Ritual on turn 2. So, yeah, definitely like this hand. We draw on the 1 of Samwise as well, which is pretty interesting. That potentially opens up the combo lines. But again, Wizards is so good at keeping us off the combo that I don't know how often that's going to happen. So definitely not going to block here because there's a chance we want to use the Birthing Ritual. Okay, interesting. So we're definitely going to run out the Crawl Harpooner here for sure. Unfortunately, we do get a -1/-1 counter on the Harpooner, but we still have a blocker for their future flies, which is pretty big. And then I'm going to hold back the Trapfinder here because I think, there's a chance they take out the Harpooner, grow the Soul Scumage a lot, and then we'd want to block with the Trapfinder. I don't want to waste the Harpooner here necessarily because, any instant speed spell will buff it, and Harpooner is very valuable. For example, say they go Symmetry Sage into Reckless Charge, we want to have a blocker for their flyers. Okay, interesting. So we definitely want to get the Birthing Ritual down here, I think, because we want to try and find another Harpooner if possible. And then I think out of these 2, I want to get the Unlucky Witness down. So yeah, another Harpooner here would be great. Then we can take out the Symmetry Sage. Wow, we hit 1. That's sick. Okay, so out of these, I think I want to sacrifice the Unlucky Witness because we could do with another land here. Then we get another Harpooner, take out the Symmetry Sage. Now, they do get to keep the Arcanist around, which is a little bit of a concern, but I still feel like we're in a good position. We're starting to build up a decent board here. Getting rid of the Symmetry Sage also... Oh, wow, Weathered Runestone. Okay, so that cuts us off the combo. Does that stop them casting stuff with Lurrus? Sorry, with Dreadful Arcanist, I mean. By the way, definitely going to go Samwise into a Ajani here. Yeah, getting rid of the Symmetry Sage cuts them off, buffing the Arcanist so they can't flash back the Flame of Anor. Okay, opponent just scoops it up, so we got there. Nice. Okay, so we're going second here. And, I mean, this is a lot of lands, but I think I'm going to keep it because Familiar, Bombardment, and Ajani work pretty well together. We've also got Luris in case we do keep flooding out. Okay, interesting. So just debating whether I want to play Cauldron Familiar or Trap Finder here. I think almost certainly going to be Trap Finder. And then next turn, I mean, we'll see what they play. Okay, it looks like they're on Mardu then. Okay, they run out on Ajani. And they attack in. So just whether we want to go for our own Ajani or Bombardment here, which is close. I think we get pretty punished if they have Bombardment of their own, but casting Ajani... So yeah, maybe we're supposed to go Bombardment, but putting Bombardment down doesn't really help us too much if they have a Bombardment of their own. And if they don't have a Bombardment, then it's, you know, running out Ajani just puts more pressure in play, I think. So, although I think it's pretty close, I could definitely see an argument for running out the Bombardment first here. But, you know, it prevents them from attacking with the Trap Finder here, which is, not, you know, it's not nothing. Okay, so they do have Static Prison for the Ajani. Honestly, I'm happy they used that on Ajani rather than the Bombardment here. Interesting, so we drew Samwise, so now we have the combo. So, I think it's pretty safe to run out the Familiar. There is an argument for holding on to the Familiar so we can go Samwise into Familiar next turn, but we're basically guaranteed to draw another creature that we can cast off the after the Samwise, off the Trap Finder trigger. And I'm going to use the Bombardment to kill their Ajani now, just so they can't use something like a Deadly Dispute or a Corrupted Conviction on their cat at instant speed, right? Doing it this way basically just prevents them from flipping it, which is pretty big. Okay, so they've got Marionette Apprentice, so looks like they don't have an instant speed removal spell here, which is pretty huge. So we're going to block here and then take out the other Amp Raptor just in case they do have a removal spell and they're, you know, just pressing skip through the turn, for example. But if they don't have a removal spell here, we should just be good to win. And it looks like, again, Arena's giving away priority here. So we can just cast the Samwise, cast the Unlucky Witness, and then just start going off with Unlucky Witness. Well, sacrifice the Fu token that we get off the Samwise to bring back the Cauldron Familiar. And yeah, it doesn't look like the opponent has a removal spell, so this kind of highlights why I like this. You know, obviously if the opponent has a Bombardment in the mirror match, it's kind of tricky game one, but if they don't draw their Bombardment, you can typically go over the top of them because their game plan is a lot more fairer. So post-sideboard, though, if they did have Bombardment, it's a lot trickier, which is why I like bringing in the 4 copies of Haywire Might here, trim 2 Bartolome, and then 1 of each 1-drop, and then ship it back. So typically, outside of Wizards, where I like cutting, you know, 4 of Bartolome, if I'm bringing in 4 Haywire Might or 4 Fragment Reality, the cuts I typically always trim are those 2 Bartolome and then 1 of each of the 1-drops, because everything else is kind of more important, I think. Okay, can't keep a 1-lander. Oh, wow. 2 1-landers in a row is pretty rough. So we're going down to 5. Okay, this is fine-ish. I mean, Birthing Ritual can definitely dig you out of mulligans. Obviously, we need to find a white land or a 1-drop here, though. So we don't find a 1-drop on 1, which is a little bit annoying. And everything that we've got in hand needs white mana here. But again, if we can find a creature to cast, you know, to use with the Birthing Ritual, then that can kind of bail us out of this situation a little bit. So we could cast the Bombardment here, but I think Birthing Ritual is the better card to play. So now we've got a turn cycle to either draw a white land or draw just another creature that's not white that we can cast and use with the Birthing Ritual. Pretty strong start from the opponent, though. They've got Ajani, and then they can sacrifice the token to flip it immediately. And then if they have another way to use this 2 black mana, it's going to be pretty bad for us. Like a Marionette Apprentice. Okay, they didn't have a way to use the mana, which is good at least. Okay, we drew a creature, so we can at least use the Birthing Ritual this turn. Okay, I think I'm going to get Trap Finder here. Or, yeah, I think Trap Finder is the best option, because then we can just block the 2-1 if they don't kill our Trap Finder with the Ajani. Okay, Static Prison. So I don't know if they're going to take out the Trap Finder or the Ritual. Okay, they take out the Ritual, which makes sense. Puts Lurus into hand. They're going to kill the Trap Finder here or go face. Yeah, they go face. Which does mean that we can get rid of this 2-1. Slows them down a little bit, but we're pretty far behind here. Okay, yikes. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So this is the weakness of running a 4-color deck. You are going to have some games like this where you don't draw the right colors. But like I said, we have got enough sources of each color to have it the majority of the time. And we're still in a position here where if we draw a white land, we can potentially go Samwise into a 1-drop and then combo, even though we're like significantly far behind right now. So if the opponent taps out here and doesn't kill us, there is a chance that we can still win this game, even though we were incredibly far behind and missed the colours that we needed for the majority of the game. Oh, wow. Okay, there we go. I mean, again, it's not that unlikely, to be honest, because we are running 14 of each source. So even though we were super far behind this game, we were still able to just win it, drawing our 3rd land this late, which is pretty huge. So managed to get their game 2 as well, which is pretty big. Nice.